Welcome to the EGC Marketing Podcast, where we provide you with the latest digital marketing news, performance marketing tips, and creative problem-solving skills you need to stay resilient in our fast-changing world of marketing. Listen each week and learn how to get the edge over your competition and grow.
Hello and welcome everyone to the EGC Marketing Edge Podcast. I'm Max, your host, and I'm very excited to have Christopher Canadeo, EGC's Director of Growth, joining me today. Our mission on this podcast is to provide you with practical and actionable advice to craft successful marketing strategies. Today, we're diving deep into conversion rates. As most marketers are well aware, conversion rates stand as a cornerstone metric, representing crucial actions like purchases and other metrics that can significantly impact business performance. Chris is here to share practical strategies for increasing conversion rates, backed by real-world examples. So please listen in to learn how to optimize your marketing efforts for superior results. Chris, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Max. That was quite an introduction. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. Talking conversion rates, which might not sound like the sexiest conversation to have, but can have a tremendous impact on your client's business. And there are just so many different ways to enhance conversion rates on your client's website. So very excited to get into today's topic.
So I guess for people who aren't necessarily familiar with what a conversion rate is or entails, can you perhaps give a definition of conversion rate and maybe list one or two examples of an example of what conversion rates can be?
Sure. So first, let's start with a conversion. So that is any desired action on a user's website. So when a user comes to the site, any action they take, such as an exchange of information, completing a form, can be clicking on a video. The desired conversions that your clients care about can vary, but it's mostly any sort of action, whether it's a purchase, downloading informational content on a site, applying to register for an event on a website. All of those can qualify as conversions. And the conversion rate is the percentage of users who come to the site versus the amount of users who convert on a specific action. So when we talk about conversion rates, if traffic to the site is held constant, we want to increase the amount of conversions, such as registrations and purchases, and the conversion rate will go up.
So yeah, you touched on this. Conversion rates, they're really broad. They could represent, many actions. So, because of this wide range, are there any strategies that someone should consider when deciding like what to optimize for, whether it's perhaps a lead form, enter, or maybe even something as direct as just purchasing a product?
100%. I would say first and probably the most important when we look at improving conversion rates is to really understand the user process going through the website. So testing the pages for yourself, putting yourselves in the shoes of the interested audience in question, kind of navigating through the site, different pages, identifying different sticking points, and getting a solid understanding of the user experience first before somewhat letting the metrics tell you, okay, here are the most frequently visited pages, here are the top converting channels, and kind of merging the two on what the kind of look and feel of what you believe a quality website should be, having experts weigh in at your respective agency, having the client weigh in because perhaps there's historical context that is relevant, and then kind of diving deep into, all right, well, we want to take a look at obviously the pages and the changes that will lead to the most positive impact for your client. So when we're talking in the framework of conversion rates, that usually is understanding if the highest traffic generating pages are being converted in the most effective way possible. So if you were to adjust the conversion rate on a page that gets maybe 5% of your overall traffic views, obviously the change can be beneficial, but it won't necessarily have the same weight of impact versus if you were to make a significant change on the homepage or perhaps a key registration page when purchasing information. So all of that to say that it's a combination of what you believe to be kind of changes on the site, having more of a sort of mobile focused mindset. That's always something that I would say gets overlooked by some clients is the impact of mobile on the site. So if you see again, in your various perhaps Google Analytics tools, that the majority of traffic comes from a mobile device, then all of your pages need to be optimized or at least converting in a positive manner for the mobile user experience. So kind of all of that kind of comes into play. And then I will say also that it's an ongoing process. So a website is never truly, I would say, completed, in the sense that you are trying to improve by sometimes very small percentages that make a big impact over time, a continuous process of testing and identifying certain strategies that can improve overall effectiveness of the site. Because primarily what we're trying to achieve when a user lands on the website is to, again, have them take action. Whether they're on the website to browse for information is fine, but we're also looking for them to take action on the site. So this is something that can change with different trends and behaviors in kind of a societal basis. So kind of adjusting your pages, whether it's changing the content, whether it's enhancing the call to actions, which are the forms and other metrics, but mostly the forms on the site. That's kind of an ongoing process as far as adjustments and to getting your website to be as perfect as possible before actually making other changes, whether it's media changes or different kind of levers that we can pull.
Gotcha. So that was a lot of very helpful information that was just disclosed. One thing that I guess stood out to me from all of that was, something along the lines of traffic. So of course, it is very important for a page to, perform well, to, successfully lead users to take a certain action with not a lot of friction. But some people, can argue if the traffic that you're directing to that page isn't qualified, how well the page is designed may be a moot point. So can you touch on, perhaps how do you ensure that the traffic that you're directing to your page or your product or whatever the case may be is qualified and they are taking the actions that you want them to take instead of, perhaps maybe a poorly designed site? In a sense, how do you decide if it's poor traffic or poor site design?
Right. So I would say there are a number of ways to address this, some of which can be addressed directly on the said form that someone is completing. So obviously there can be, if a form is not set up correctly with certain compliancy measures and kind of bot swatting away enhancements, that there can be a lot of form fills on a site that aren't necessarily indicative of actionable users taking interest in said action. So I would say the first thing is to make sure that the kind of call to actions on your site are as bulletproof as they can possibly be, in the sense of having, whether it's a CAPTCHA feature on your web forms, or just kind of making sure that those are as strong as they can be. But you'll still kind of run into, from time to time, different traffic that is not your desired audience, whether it's traffic from a foreign country and you're a client that's primarily in the US. So from that perspective, there are other ways that you can identify quality traffic. Time spent on page is definitely, I would say, a key indicator, as well as bounce rate. So if it is a kind of artificial user that's not the person who we want to target, usually a good understanding is to look at the time that they've spent, and perhaps at a page level, the average time that is spent on a page. So if you see that, again, the location from the user is not from the areas that you initially intended for them to be from, and also a combination of them not staying on the page, whether they just click and leave, those are usually good indications of traffic that is non-desirable. But you're absolutely right, Max, that stuff like that can get in the way of a proper A/B test. So it's always kind of good to look into the numbers, and there really is no harm if you were to launch an A/B test over a period of 30, 60, 90 days, and those factors are present, and your client is not convinced that the A or B result is necessarily a statistically significant result and one that is deemed worthy of creating change, then you can always rerun the test again, and also kind of keep an eye on those many different kind of outside, external, and contextual factors.
Perfect. So you mentioned A/B testing, which we can have a whole podcast episode, in and of itself on. But just talking about A/B testing, are there any instances where, because A/B testing is ideally incremental, you're changing a few aspects of a site, of a page, of a form, whatever. But are there any instances where you want to perhaps launch an overhaul instead of testing incrementally? And can you provide any examples to where that could be the case?
So it's funny that I'm not sure if listeners know this, but I am speaking to the resident A/B tester, maestro himself, Max Ross, at the agency. Certainly has conducted numerous A/B tests and has helped our clients really kind of, when it comes to thinking differently about the site, pioneering. So it's an honor to be speaking with you about different A/B tests and how they can help a client's business. And I mean, look, I would say that overall, an overhaul from the site from a practical standpoint usually is not feasible especially in a short period of time. And clients are very hesitant to take a website that works, albeit a hopefully compliant and stable website, and to change everything or make major changes. So I think that when it comes to perhaps certain design, aesthetic, messaging, that can be done more so at a smaller scale. And then having information that could lead to a big change is an ongoing process, and it is something that, again, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. But more so, clients will take a liking to smaller changes that lead to more positive, effective results before going all in on a massive site redesign. And this can be done in a number of ways. For our clients, we like to test if they're running a promo. Something as simple as changing the messaging on a promo. So if it's buy one, get one free, 50% off. So kind of testing how different messaging, percentage-based messaging, how that really resonates with customers. And if it does lead to a significant increase in conversions in sort of either direction, and kind of understanding those over time on a smaller scale, whether it's kind of you develop two separate landing pages and you send traffic to both of those landing pages and see what the results are, but kind of measuring that out on a smaller scale and seeing actionable results leads itself to having a conversation with the client on bigger changes and bigger results. And you have this snowballing effect that will hopefully lead to, again, the best and most optimized site that it can possibly be.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually remember reading a book, Great by Choice, which mentions this approach of firing, bullets before cannonballs. In a sense, you're testing incrementally, you're optimizing things, and then once you get momentum, you really put some effort behind it. So that's definitely, my POV when it comes to, when to test incrementally versus when to overhaul. But that's something that you just echoed. So, happy we're on the same page, as we should be, considering we work together in quite close capacity.
And you would know, Max. I mean, you, as far as your experience lies, I definitely agree that you carry more weight than I do, even in a sense that you're so close to all of our clients' testing and optimization strategies. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right as well. It's usually the small changes are what can sell them in first on the whole process, and then the massive overhauls, hopefully in a positive manner, is what the goal is to get kind of the site that they're looking for.
Yeah, we'll for our listeners, we'll have a conversion, or sorry, rather an A/B testing podcast soon to come. So keep an eye out for that. You'll learn about
maybe even a workshop.
Yes, maybe even a workshop. It's a reminder to subscribe to our newsletter and keep posted for all of the most relevant information. Perfect. Okay, so I guess before we end, can you share some perhaps real world examples of some successful conversion rate initiatives, tests, or strategies that our listeners can view from or learn from? Rather, I could share a few myself as well. To end things off.
Sure. I would say that we have seen, again, it's as far as what you test can vary drastically based on the client that you work on. So manipulating price, sending to a different audience, it's all of those things can lead to positive results. I will say that I don't know if it's my favorite A/B test of all, but one that definitely proves to be successful is when you utilize tools such as we use tools such as VWO at the agency that can combat for seasonality. So sometimes when you run a test, if you were to run one without a tool that can evenly split the traffic to an A and a B example, what you might run into is seasonality changes where you're launching a test maybe 30 days with one change on the website versus 30 days with another change on the website. But there can be so many different contextual factors that come into play when looking at the results that it might not be a true A/B test. So Again, I think it's also very important to have specific A/B tools at your respective agency or on client side, your respective business, because that really gives you a true indication of an even playing field for both kind of test subjects. So, and we've executed this in a number of different ways, whether it's changing the call to actions on the homepage that for some of our clients get hundreds of thousands of views a month, and understanding kind of which call to action, because they have a few, which one should really be kind of the hero and stand out versus others. I will say too is that we always like to run, as I mentioned, an A/B test if there's a new product promotion or a new promotion in general, and understanding what kind of resonates more with the positioning and the messaging of said product. So it's also, yeah, I would say extremely important to make sure that you are kind of understanding the caveats if you don't have the necessary A/B tools in play, what that means for the results that you will get at the end of the test.
Yeah, most definitely. I would say that you are, in a sense, almost as good as your stack allows you to be. So you really definitely need to have a relevant, and efficient technology stack when it comes to testing. VWO is a great example. Same same traffic, same timing. It's all very important to have those conditions be constant for a true, A/B test. And I guess just to point out an example as to how effective a test can be. We had a lead form page for a healthcare client in which we simply, tweaked the copy, to make it more actionable. This was not a design change. This was strictly a language-based change, and it actually led to a 30% lift in conversion rate for purchases. So when you're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of, users visiting that page, it's a significant difference. So, it's very eye-opening and important to, test frequently and, glean these insights and provide it, or rather take this information and apply it to other pages to really enhance that lever for growth.
100%. And I will say too is that obviously who wouldn't want 30% higher conversion rates across the site, but even it's more so understanding that even a 5% increase in conversion on pages that receive so much traffic and improving on that, so the next test you run could be 5%, 4%, 6%. That constant kind of push and building towards the site overall, they may seem like small changes in isolation, but they lead to a big difference when it comes to ROI and overall kind of positive sales results for the client.
Most definitely. All right, Chris, we'll wrap it up with just a bit of a final insight, if you will. Is there anything rather that you would like to share with our listeners, whether it's, trends, something to look forward to? This is your chance to, leave people with a nugget to bite on before we conclude.
It's funny. I was looking yesterday. This is more in the search realm. So how, again, capturing intent, how users can find you. And I think it's very interesting that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, et cetera, are using certain AI tools like ChatGPT almost in replacement of like a Google or a Bing, and that's becoming their search engine. So I would say optimizing your presence, because you obviously want, regardless of your conversion rates, it's simple math that the more users you get to the site, normally if conversion rates are held constant, the more overall conversions that you have. So it's just something very interesting to think about. Definitely, I would say the balance between the search behavior of the younger generations being more kind of LLM style and LLM focused, and perhaps shifting away from Google. I know that's something absolutely crazy to say right now, but we might see it is definitely, I would say, some sort of insight that your client should definitely consider how they are being presented on these sort of sites, whether it's ChatGPT, because it's definitely moving in that direction where it will matter a great deal on how you stack up in that sort of realm versus your competitors.
Fantastic. This is actually a good time to shout out our other podcasts. We do have one specifically on AI, so do keep an ear out for that. Chris, thank you so much for attending. I do want to say to all of our listeners, subscribe, share. If you like what you heard, we have some more excellent content that is going to be pushed out within the next few weeks. And thanks again, Chris, for joining us, and we will see you in our next episode.